Alrighty. Well, we've been talking for a couple minutes, but I am sitting here with South African legendary musician slash producer Denholm Harding. Most notably famous for being in the band Just Jinjer, one of the most successful South African bands in history. He's now a producer and a musician still in South Africa. He lives in the East Rand, Johannesburg. I, as usual, will do a big up intro post our interview. Denholm, you are episode 100, no pressure. What I'm going to do is get you to please give my listeners a brief introduction, a bullet point introduction, if you will, of who Denholm Harding is, so that my listeners get a better understanding of your mindset during today's conversation.
Oh, man. Well, I wish I didn't know I was your 100th episode. It's a great honor and a crippling responsibility. I'm riddled with anxiety now. I hope I live up to it, and I hope I'm worthy of that. But we're just gonna have a great conversation and a bullet point introduction to myself. I'm a musician born out of two musicians. Both my parents are incredible musicians, and so I kind of won the genetic jackpot lottery there, and equally kind and generous and just good-hearted parents couldn't have wished for better, and just really supported me in my journey as a musician. So everything that came from that. Had an early start. I was on a national televised all ages talent show when I was 5 years old, and I toured the country with a lot of notable big artists when I was 6. So I just got into it really early and found my way to Johannesburg when I was a teenager. I was headhunted by a television company called Mnet in South Africa, and I was headhunted to be the drummer for a band called the KTV Kids, and KTV was like a children's channel. So just did touring and gigging nonstop, and found my way after that. I studied drumming to a high tuition level, and reached a point where I was like, okay, well, I was 18, and now I had like a drumming and percussion diploma, but there weren't really gigs, and so another band was like, we're looking for a bass player. And I was like, well, it's got 4 strings. How hard can it be? And so silly of me to think that it wasn't. I'm still trying to master it all these years later. But jumped in the deep end, got a bass, and just a couple of months later was in the biggest band in our home country at the time, Just Jinjer, and have been touring and living abroad with them ever since, and moved back to South Africa in 2010 as a multi-instrumentalist. I was like, well, I can only play one instrument at a time technically on stage, but in studio I can be the band. So fell into production, and that has been ever since my muse that I chase and keeps me up at night. And and my production led me to work with just artists I never thought I'd have the true deep lifelong honor to be in a room with, nevermind to help navigate the waters of a career building moments in them, giants. I produced Johnny Clegg's last album, Jesse Clegg, his son, obviously prolific, incredible artist, a big rock band here, Prime Circle, did 2 of their records, and just many others, and The Voice, and just an absolute charmed life that I don't really understand how it's happened or why it's happened, but continuously try and just like justify it in whatever way I can. So I don't know if that's bullet point, but that's kind of a rough summary of what led us to episode 100, and I'm a little bit perplexed as to how I'm even on here, but I'm very grateful, and it's a true honor. Thank you.
Thank you. And you're going to have more to offer than I think you even realize. You're one of the greatest musicians to come out of our home country, as far as I'm concerned. Man. Yeah, you touched on a lot of points that we'll kind of dig a little deeper on, starting with, so you mentioned that your folks were both musicians. What exactly made the music bug bite? Were they just constantly actually like playing music around the house, or were they playing music that drew you to it, that you were kind of interested to find out more?
That's actually a profound question, because they are different things, and I haven't actually tried to compartmentalize it. I think both. I think that my parents were well versed. My dad is a drummer and a singer, and my mom's a pianist and keyboard player, and she still runs a music academy. So they had very multiple projects that they would play in Cape Town. They were the backing band of like a touring circuit of country festivals called Keep It Country. And then the next night, my dad would be playing a jazz gig in town, or do a residency. When the night I was born, my father started a 6 nights a week residency in like a 5-star restaurant, doing like a trio jazz thing. So, and then they also had like just a dance events wedding band. So
Yeah.
my formative years were spent either in their rehearsal room, like drawing, coloring in books, but like, having fun, but like listening to them practice. So
Yeah.
like in the old days with a cassette recorder, or it would be vinyl, and then they could copy it to cassette, and then they'd press play, and like, it would be level 42 or someone, and they'd like, okay, what are those chords? And my mom had like, a DX7 keyboard, and like, it's not like in the days of plug-in fatigue where, the keyboard you bought hopefully had the sound that the artist that you're trying to sound like had.
Yeah.
And they probably used a Jupiter or a Juno or a Prophet, and you've got something else. So,
Yeah.
and then you like try and do your thing, and the creativity that came out. And this is something that we all see now when we watch interviews, and, we've got YouTube and we've got everything. But when you watch people go, the limitation is where actual creativity is. Creativity isn't because you have a gazillion options and choice fatigue. Creativity comes from, I've got a kettle, I've got a mop, and I've got a lava lamp. Like, what can I get out of this?
Yeah.
And what I saw, the music that they made, and then the sophisticated ear of like my father would tell me that he would come home from a gig at like 2 a.m. and then take over the night shift when I was a newborn. And the only thing that would make me stop kicking the cot was Oscar Peterson. So
Beautiful.
like, yeah, my dad had like, I think 80 or 90 Oscar Peterson records.
Wow.
Just Oscar Peterson, and like such a ridiculous full circle moment. Like same as you, like, with the band, I lived in the UK for a few years and ended up seeing Niels Henning Ostrid Pedersen, who was Oscar's bass player, at Ronnie Scott's. And like, just so music has really, been woven into the tapestry and the fabric of, it's why there's such a woeful tale about our industry and our heroes. Because if you do a job and you're not very good at it, and someone says, hey, you're not good at, or you did a bad job, or whatever negative thing they want to say, you can go, okay, and then you lock up at 5 and you go home and you have dinner with your spouse or hang with your kids or go out with your friends, and that's who you are. The job is what you do. But with us, music is who we are. So when someone says you're not great, or you weren't, I don't like that, whatever, song, sound, whatever is an extension of you, it's such a personal thing, which is why a lot of musicians struggle with the peaks and the troughs of you're loved and despised, sometimes in the same hour. So when we're all too young to be burnt by that, it's just fun. And I think that that's where a lot of upbringing matters, because sometimes a parent, not intentionally obviously, but sometimes a parent can subconsciously imprint like a personal limitation onto a kid that's still just having fun or just figuring it out, or just even seeing if it's like, I think you said, like, when did the bug bite, or how did the bug bite? Whereas like in my case, my parents, even though they were musicians, they didn't let on that what I was doing was difficult. They didn't let me think that it was difficult, even though it probably was, like, as a kid trying to, with my mom's knitting needles, trying to like play along to Chicoria or something. It's not normal, maybe, or like common, shall I say? But it was never like, oh, you shouldn't listen to that record. That's way too advanced. It was never sort of imprinted on me in that fashion. So I don't know if there's a formula to extract from any of that, but that just so happens to be how it worked for me. It was just this magical time of like passion, sort of being the facilitator to, I guess, practice. Because when you're that young and it's just fun and you just can't stop doing it because you've got all the energy in the world and the wonderment, spending a whole day playing with music is a whole day of practicing.
Yeah.
As adults, it's like, who's got 10 hours to practice? But as a kid, all day long, When
I was a kid, I remember one of the instructors I had, and I've spoken about this on the podcast before. I was at the National School of the Arts. And so he would be like, he would sit us all down and be like, you guys need to pay now and play later. And at the time, I never really understood what that meant, But as I get older, it's so clear. It's so clear because, like, people say, oh, more responsibilities are going to come and this and that and this and that. And they do. And those days of sitting with whatever instruments, a keyboard, a drum kit, a guitar, working on a DAW, whatever it is, and just sitting there going, I'm going to just explore for 10 hours today. Those days are like, I mean, listen, you get them, but they just not like when you're 15, 16, 17, 18, 13, whatever it is, that's such a golden time. If you're interested in music, it can be incredible. That's where you get your 10,000 hours that everybody always talks about. Like, man, if I could find the time to practice how I used to practice, wow, I could dream of what I could achieve, Anyway, enough about me. Let's talk about drumming. So you said Chick Corea. I mean, the fact you're drumming along with knitting needles to Chick Corea is quite something. There were definitely easier options. But you land up on this talent show. You get headhunted by Mnet. For the listeners wondering what Mnet is, it's basically South Africa's equivalent of like BBC in the UK or like NBC, CBS here in the States, that kind of thing. Probably the biggest in the country, and or at least it was. I don't know about now. So that call comes through and you land up on the KTV band. Again, for listeners wondering, KTV was the biggest children's channel that I can remember. I mean, like, if you weren't watching KTV as a kid, you were living under a rock. It's basically like, I guess it's PBS here and not quite Cartoon Network, but maybe Cartoon Network. I mean, there were these interactions between the cartoons, right? Great initiative. So, okay, I'm going to fast forward here because we've touched on it both with your intro and now while I'm asking this question. So how does it go from I'm playing on this huge network to, okay, I'm going to go study drums to a higher level and try and turn this into a career? Was that a conscious decision? Or was it a matter of, well, you had seen your parents do this, so this was just normal for you and you were kind of just living a life that you thought was normal?
In Just Jinjer, we always joke, we're actually about to embark on, we're plotting out, I don't know when this is going to come out, but there is in the works of, it's been 30 years since our debut, if you want to call it groundbreaking, first record. And so there's things in the works happening around that. And so when we're on stage, like we'll often joke that this song is almost 30 years old, and which is weird because we're only just all in our 30s, so we don't quite know how the math, trying to remember my teens, it was just the other day, but if I can remember, I think what happened is maybe like a natural progression of small interactions that leads to like you just chasing the tail of the rabbit, and you're not really trying to get into the mentality of the rabbit. Why is it dodging left? And you're just trying to catch it. You just because you're a kid, So I think that potentially it would have been like a combination of like every time you're at a gig and someone's like, you should check out this band, you should play with these guys, or you should do that. Or my tutor at the time, the great, incredible Andre Luke, who very, very sadly passed recently. I probably was already going to lessons, and he was like, you should check this next thing out, and we should get you some Berkeley curriculum, and we should get some and so you're just chasing the tail. You're like, what else? What next? I would say that at that age, and it was just passion driven. It was just, well, I love the challenge, and the challenge wasn't like, I think that before the internet, the challenge was, if I become as good as the album that I'm listening to, if I become as good as those guys, I can be those guys. Long before like, podcasts that give you the reality and the heartbreak of like, or like the numbers of Spotify or something, or like, 1 trillion songs get released and 3 go number 1, or like, before any of that, it was just like, it was you and your buddies, and like whoever's dad had the coolest record collection, and you would geek out and just like, if we can play that, then we can maybe be in that band. You had ridiculous pipe dreams, but so that sort of passion and just like excitement before the drudgery of the reality of an industry and the business, the music business, when it was just music as a kid. It wasn't too thought out. It was just like, I just want to get better. I just want, and potentially, as your blade sharpens and you spot another sharp blade, that becomes your next thing. Like, I don't know whether it's a battle of the bands, or you're in like or you're just at a gig and you think you're the sharpest blade, and some other kid is like pretty hot on, quick on the draw, and you're like, man, I gotta wake up a bit earlier tomorrow and hit the skins, and so a magical time, like, if I can remember that, that's really what it felt like, just like, how fast can this thing go? Before someone says to you, no, but there's a speed limit on the highway, and like most engines have a governor built into it. You just putting your foot flat, and you're like, I want to just see how fast this can, musically, how fast this can go, without without any danger. But that's it, really, I guess.
Yeah, and people, I think, underestimate how luck really does play a part. Because especially now with social media, YouTube, Instagram, we were talking about some of that stuff earlier, it's like there's so many talented people. So like, I'd hate to say it's not about talent, but it's like, man, there's really no reason apart from luck and obviously certain circumstances, but like you'll see certain artists and they're doing this, and you'll see other artists that you might think are just as good as that, but they can't seem to get there. So it's like sometimes it is luck, sometimes it's timing, sometimes it's relationships and who you know. Let's jump into Just Jinjer for a little bit. Okay. You get to 1997, you get the call to somehow become the bass player in Just Jinjer. You mentioned earlier that you hadn't played bass. You kind of figured, well, 4 strings, how difficult could it be? So talk me through a little bit of this. How do you end up replacing Tux?
Yeah.
How do you learn bass, or did you have enough of a musical foundation that you could figure it out for yourself? Did you have to go for lessons? How quickly was the transition from, hey, can you come play bass for us, to, whoa, I'm playing bass in this band? Because from what I can remember, and I was very young, but from what I can remember, that time, that era, it seemed like you guys were on this rocket ship, man. It was like you couldn't turn on TV without seeing Just Jinjer. You couldn't turn on radio without hearing Just Jinjer. Just Jinjer was everywhere. So was it weird kind of just jumping into that, or was it kind of like a natural transition from being, well, I'm this drummer on KTV, so this is just the next thing?
With 12, 13 years old, you're a teenager. It's kind of like a cool excuse to bunk school. If it's like going on a tour to Namibia, which is like a neighboring country of our country, and you're going there, you got to leave on like the Thursday, so you bunk school on like the Friday. So it's just adventure. And again, just can't play enough drums, and just can't play enough music. So it's just like there is no off switch. And then later, still like, you know, like just post teen, still having that, but now obviously like, okay, like, you know, it's out in the real world, and it's a little bit like, you know, if you don't hunt, you don't eat, kind of thing, you know. So then it's kind of like still super passionate, but like, you know, now it's about like I'm like, I want a gig. I want, you know, it's not just about playing drums 10 hours in the garage or whatever. It's like, I want to play 6 nights a week, you know, because now that's the thing. That's the next thing of like, how many gigs can I get, and how, you know, and then, so like, I don't really remember how, but in the 80s, drum machines were very popular and becoming very popular. And it's kind of like what AI is now, where there was like, it's going to take every drummer is going to be without work. That's what it felt like, you know, when like the 808 came out, and like, you know, all these, you know, different drum machines and stuff. So my dad, out of like obviously just pure care and concern and love, was like, he would take, that's why I played on the knitting needles, because he would he would take his drumsticks to work with him, so I couldn't play drums, because he was scared that there wouldn't be any gigs for drummers. So my dad, as I remember it, like, you know, he saved up a bunch of leave at work, and bought a Fender Stratocaster from a gigging musician in Cape Town at the time, like an American Strat, you know, to give me a guitar, to like give me another instrument, you know, because I'd always play on his acoustic, but my father's left-handed, so I was doing like all sort of weird stuff, I don't know what. And and that gigging musician, Robin Gallagher, ended up becoming the head of Fender for South Africa many years later. But so there's just like, I got this guitar, and again, then it was like the same records that I fell in love with, like Steely Dan, like the Royal Scam, and those records, and Stevie Wonder, which like we're just obsessed over. Then it was like, you know, I'd obviously worn those records out learning the drums, but now it's like, okay, I'm gonna go back to those records and learn the guitar and stuff, you know. So I taught myself by ear, like I could play guitar, and then at some point I was like playing with my parents. It just was like a natural evolution of like, it was sort of like, well, it's a new thing and you got to go for lessons. So I did have that understanding, and I was like, okay, so it's the top 4 strings of a guitar, right? And so there was a cover band, a cover band called No Way Out, that was looking for a bass player, and I was like, well, yeah, I can do it, I guess, you know, and auditioned with my dad's acoustic, and I said that my bass was in for repairs. And they were like, no, I can play, so it's cool, you got the gig. And we, like, they were doing covers like 6 nights a week. It was that thing of like, you know, you're old and you got to find the time, whatever, but it was just that thing of like, you're playing 3 sets a night, 6 nights a week. So the Monday night, or no, we wouldn't play. I don't think we played Monday. I'm trying to remember. But anyways, like, let's say we called it like a Monday night, like a student night gig, whatever, you know. I'd play with like these 2 fingers, and then I'd blister them. And then the Tuesday night, I'd play with the last 2 fingers.
Yeah.
And I'd learn to play with those while I'm popping, you know. And so before I knew it, like, just because I had to play that much, my stamina and my, like, I just leveled up quick because I had to. And, you know, you just like, and so that's how I think I joined that band in like April of '97, and then like I want to say maybe somewhere around about maybe like September or so of that year, Just Jinjer actually opened up for Toto.
I remember this. Yeah,
at the Standard Bank Arena. So already then there were situations that sometimes I had to be on standby. So I wasn't in the band, but it was like, just in case I need to play bass. So I was always like, every night I was set up on the side of the stage, and had my own monitor, that if I had to play the gig, I would be off stage, but I was there. So that already started the conversation of like, you know, if I need to step in. And then that around about that time, they needed someone to play bass and record on a Rodriguez cover called Sugar Man, and that ended up becoming like a again, before the internet, our singer Art Matthews, as the whole music industry is, but such a deep Rodriguez fan, and he grew up on the Bluff, and he genuinely, there was a story that he thought was true, that Rodriguez, I won't say what the story was because it's quite morbid, but that, let's just say that he had passed, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So it was an ode. It was a tribute, like a loving tribute to like an incredible, one of the greatest songwriters ever, right?
Fantastic songwriter.
So yeah, incredible, timeless. And so we recorded our version of that song, and it was the first single. It was my first time. It was my first bass session. That was my audition into the band. It was the first time I played bass in a studio. So that song happened, and they were like, "Well, okay, you're in, and do I want to tour that December with them?" And so then that was it. That's how I transitioned from a drummer to like a cover band to like a few months later being in this rocket ship, as you
huge band.
Said. And then that record, the second record that song was in, became like the fastest selling rock record. So it was really a trajectory of like never before kind of thing. And we didn't really have much company in terms of like who do we ask, how does this all work? And you know, the last band that kind of had done that, you know, Rabbit, of course, you know, Manga Groove, like incredibly huge, far greater than us. But in terms of our peer group in the rock market in South Africa, you know, we were kind of, I don't want to say we were very thankfully so embraced and loved by the fan base, but we weren't like fast friends with the rest of the industry, because you know, everybody was working as hard as we were, and everybody wanted the success as much as we wanted it, and we didn't ask for it any more than anybody else. But it just so happened that, as you said, timing. You just no one, the greatest musical minds and moguls can predict what's going to become cultural. You can predict what's going to be popular. You can predict what's going to be a hit, but to a degree. But you cannot predict what's going to become cultural.
No,
you can't. Gangnam Style, like, why not the 20 other albums that he did? Why that? You know, and you just don't know. You know? And maybe that's part of what keeps reeling every time we think we're out. You know, that lure just hooks us back in. You know, what if we're the next thing? Or, you know,
it could happen, because especially now, you know, it's like, I remember pre-internet band days.
Mm-hmm.
I was always told, man, if you haven't made it by the time you're 24, it's just never going to happen, blah 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 blah, from my
24,
peers.
that's such a random number.
Right? Yeah, like, what the hell, right? Okay, so anyway, I believed this for a long time. But now, even though you do still have age demographics in certain genres, pop being one of them, with TikTok and YouTube Reels and Instagram Reels and stuff, the amount of people who are famous and the brackets all over the place. I see these two rap guys from England who are in their 70s. I see them on TikTok all the time. They're great, you know? So it's like, there is no, you don't know what could happen. Look at how songs come back in terms of trends. I mean, there's that Fleetwood Mac song that blew up and remade them household names to like the average 15-year-old recently. It's like, stuff like that happens, you know? So, hey, listen, I don't want to, you know, be redundant and
running up
with the Stranger Things thing. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it happens. So it's like, you just never know. You never know. And I think, you know, again, it's kind of like the lottery. I don't know if you want to put all your hopes in it for like somebody who's like trying to put every duck in a row in one thing. But like, music is an asset. Maybe you can't touch it per se. Maybe you can't hold on to it and this and that. But when you have great songs and a discography like you guys have, somebody out there, there's a reason why guys like Dylan and the Chili Peppers and all these guys are selling their catalogs. It's not like those catalogs aren't worth money. You know, obviously there's different levels of money. I mean, a Bruce Springsteen or a Bob Dylan figure is going to sell that catalog at $300 million, whereas I'm not going to sell my catalog for $300 million. But you know what I'm trying to say? It's like there's assets there that are valuable for people. So I think it's great, man. Here's what I don't want to be
Yeah.
redundant about, because I know it's been documented pretty well over the years. And I know Art's done a few interviews out there where he does talk about it. So I don't necessarily need to go into all of the details, but I'm going to just allude to a few things here before I get to the question. So
Okay.
I'm fast forwarding because of time constraints. But Just Jinjer ended up becoming, at the time, the biggest band in South Africa. You sell somewhat, at least now you've still sold upwards of 250,000 units, a big number for a South African band. You end up going to the UK for a period of time. I've heard some stories about you guys having it a little bit tough out there. I don't know what is or what isn't true. I do know that you eventually land up in the US. I think you sign with Curb Records. I could be wrong on that. Regardless, to paint a picture, you guys do very well. You share stages with guys like Stevie Wonder, U2, Maroon 5, Goo Goo Dolls, the Spice Girls, out of all people. Craziness. Talk to me about this. You're comfortable. You are essentially top of that food chain. What was the decision to try relocate when you possibly could have just stayed comfortable on top of that food chain? And then with relocation, both in the UK and the US, what were the hardest parts?
Okay. Let's start with, so firstly, we started really young. I'm the youngest in the band, but I was 19 when I joined Just Jinjer, and it was already rocketing. And then at that time, there was such a Theo Kraus, who we spoke just off camera about, from another great band of the same era as Springbok New Girls, also great producer, just so established, but he was recently writing a thesis, and I don't want to say too much in case it hasn't been published just yet, but there's an interesting correlation between what was happening in South Africa as well as in the music, and it potentially can't be remiss that there is they fed each other to a degree. So the mid-90s was obviously a historical time for our country, and it had we been 5 years before, 5 years I think off camera you and I also just said, you could live your whole life one day later and have a completely different life, just one day, born a day later, go to school the next day instead of the day before. Incredible profound differences just in that alternate universe that maybe exists somewhere else. But when we started, we were so young, and so much was happening in our country. It was an incredible time, and an incredibly not unsure, but it felt like there's just possibility. What else is possible? Just real incredible. The 95 Rugby World Cup, just profound moments of I wish we could sort of extract the essence of that time and put it in a meal, so you could take, as you said, the tangibility of it, the asset of what was that, what is that time, and obviously we're not the first country to go through radical transition, but man, we are a unique case study of just how to navigate those waters, and musically, when you're that young, you don't realize that what you're doing is you're putting a capsule of a voice to that time. So at the time, you're just well, that sounds cool to us, and we're writing what we see and that sort of stuff, but we didn't really expect that a writer and a singer and a voice like our lead singer Art, how that would resonate, because it just hit the nerve. It just struck. So we were all very young. And then it was, as I said, the reason I mentioned what was happening in the country is because there just was this hope. There was this real optimism, and people were building, brick and mortar building venues to have us play the opening of that venue.
It's crazy.
You know, like a lot of the venues that we played didn't exist before us, and didn't carry on existing. It was just like, we heard Just Jinjer play there, they can play here by our place, and so that was happening. And then, you know, you do that for like 2-3 years. Come to 2000, now we'd been doing it, and before it was Just Jinjer, the reason it had a fan base is because systematically over time, the band was actually a circuit cover band, and the band was introducing the original songs in the set. So
Clever.
People were coming and hearing like all these incredible songs by the best bands in the world, and then they were like, "Who's that?" And it wasn't like Shazam. Couldn't Shazam it, you know. There weren't even cell phones, so never mind. Like, you know, the worm game or the brick game was like, we've made it, we've cracked life. Nothing can be better than this.
The graphics are so great.
Yeah.
The polyphonic ringtones, dude, where they had where the melody was like a famous song. You were like, this is so incredible. It's like, dude, can you imagine that now? Yeah. Hilarious, you know.
I know, this is like, you know, the banana phone where like if you pull too hard, the whole talking thing came off, like the banana knocked you. Like,
oh, dude.
Like, so imagine, you know, you're on this, you're just one town to the next, and you're just doing this thing, and now I'm 22, I'm 21, 22, and I've done like 3 coastal December tours and opening up for big acts and stuff like that, and already we're starting to go like we've played this particular venue a few times now, and you're 21, so then it isn't. I can genuinely say, and I think I can speak for everybody, but I really do think I can confidently say that it wasn't megalomania that really motivated us. It truly was. It was, if I can, maybe this is the wrong word, but maybe like a panic. Like a mild panic of like, what if this is it?
Yeah.
You know, so it really wasn't coming from a place of bravado, like, well, because we sold, you know, a lot of albums, thankfully, maybe we can, in a bigger country, we'll do more. You know, it wasn't, of course, that finds its way into the discussion, but it certainly isn't what drives the discussion, and it wasn't what got us onto the plane. As a matter of fact, from the time we got on the plane to move to the UK, it was 2 years in the UK and then 7 years in total in the States, predominantly Los Angeles. From the time we got in the plane, it was, like you said, talk you through the difficult parts. It would be a far shorter conversation to talk you through the highlights, because we certainly weren't under any disillusion of we're going to arrive and this red carpet's going to roll out. Absolutely not. But what we couldn't anticipate is that pre the internet, what made its way, what was popular enough to make its way into our lives, into our everyday, into what we formed we sharpened our teeth on. You know, the European, the American, the Australian, incredible music that was hopping over the pond, as they say. We think that, like, if you make the music, that's it. That's good enough, right? If you can make good music like that, good music, then that's it. You're in the club. And then you realize that you arrive and you start understanding, and you by entering that industry, you understand what some of those costs are incurred. By the time you are a household name, not just in your country but globally, what is the price of that? You know, and I'm talking about a very zoomed out statement when I say the price.
Of course,
on your soul, on your spirit, on your well-being, and all these things. And so we were just trying to figure it out. You know, we didn't. Again, it wasn't like we could quickly, like, you know, hey Siri, you go to a club down the road and you ask them, can we take your quiet night, Tuesday night, whatever, and you build it up, and I mean, living in pounds and spending in rands, it adds up. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And the weird sensation of doing what you do. It's the same thing, same song, same band, same musicianship, same execution, but you play to an audience of also expat, South Africans, but they're bringing their friends from either UK nationality or wherever. And then there's this moment where you can either in conversation or you can just, one human to another, you're on stage and you can see in their face that they're like, what's the trap here? Like, what's wrong here? Why isn't this a thing? And the South Africans that are watching us are like, hey, like, how cool are they? Cool, right? And then there's this thing of like, success is such a like equalizer, because if I spin a plate in my mouth and I do a bass solo and I get, okay, in today's terms, I get 0 likes, okay, then someone will say it's because you're spinning a plate and playing bass. If I get 1 million likes, someone will say it's because you're spinning a plate and playing bass.
Yeah.
Success is somehow the correct answer.
Yeah.
Whatever that answer is, it's correct if it's success. And that can drive you mad.
Completely.
It's a maddening equation to try and solve.
Yeah.
If seemingly everybody else knows the answer and you're like, just give me the answer so I can know as well,
Yeah.
So going there, the hard part was, I'm talking years now, right? Almost a decade of, obviously you ask the question, like, maybe it was just then, maybe it was the timing, and maybe that was it. Maybe that question that we asked ourselves as young, early, just turned 20 somethings, like, is this it? Maybe the answer was, yeah, that was it. But then, you know how it goes. Then the very next gig that you do on like a midweek to nobody, one person at the table at the back walks up to you and gives them their business card and goes, I'm a somebody and you're incredible. And then, oh, it's still a thing. And you keep going and round and round the merry-go-round. So I don't play golf, but I understand, from what I understand, it's that one good swing that brings you back for the punishment of like 100 bad swings. So I don't think that this is a musician's lament. I don't think we're unique in that sense, but I do think that when musicians talk to each other like this, like, we've all been there, and I think we all get it, that it's like, doesn't matter how bad it treats you sometimes, it's just like it's your true love, and I don't know, being abroad, there so many things happened that were just real moments of like, okay, so it isn't just us, like, I'm not going to mention names, but there's like big celebrities that like tweeted about us, and then you wake up to this bizarre reality of like, it's almost like you have to double check, and it's like, it really is that person, it is their account, and they really have tagged us because they saw us in Vegas at a thing, and it's like, wow, okay. And then you think, okay, so it isn't just us, it is, other people do see it, but then it requires so many moments like that consistently. I mean, people can say what they want. They do say what they want anyways about anything, but Nickelback, which is like a weird, like, perplexing case study of like, how did such a beloved, anything become not beloved? Super bizarre.
I don't get it. Like bands like Nickelback, and I'm going to even throw Creed into the picture there. Like Creed's had a real resurgence here. I mean, they're selling out arenas and stuff again. It's pretty incredible.
As I believe, I've seen that. Wow.
It's like people are so quick to throw shade, and you know, I mean, whether you love it or hate it is really not even relevant at this point. The achievement in terms of units sold by these bands, man, you've got to respect that. And like what always blows my mind with Nickelback is, man, Nickelback are incredible. Like, you know, you might not like some of the singles that have been chosen for radio play, but you go listen to some of the albums. That guy is a phenomenal songwriter. And that drummer who's been with them for the last few albums, I think his name's Daniel Adair. Wow, dude, he's something, man.
No,
he used to be in Three Doors Down, but incredible. And like, you know, we could go on back and forth about this all day because I love this particular topic. But like Creed in the States outsold Hendrix. You know, they outsold Hendrix. They've sold more records in the United States than Jimi Hendrix. So like, hate them all you want. I'm pretty sure they're sleeping just fine in their mansions at night going, people hate us, you know, who cares?
That's an interesting statistic, but it's obviously real. But
it's real.
My thing about Nickelback was whatever it is or became or will still be, long may everyone prosper. And I mean that with every fiber of my being. Like more, it really is more. Like I really do wish that for everybody and myself. But like, as I understand it, it took them like 14 years to be overnight. Sometimes you need to really understand that the context of that is important. It's important that when you have a conversation about anything that you lead with and 14 years. So you can say, oh, but their third album this, or their second this, or that single, or but 14 years before, right? So the tenacity, how many times
incredible
must you hear no and go, I'm going to do it anyways? Because if they never heard no, why was it 14 years? I wish it wasn't the case. I hope no one gets their dream shot down. But it obviously was the case for whatever rhyme or reason. And the sheer tenacity and the like, I just love this thing too much, man. Or I'm not putting words in their mouth. I hope that is the case, that's what it was. And I'm sure that was because by the time you're the boss and your name is on the building, you're the poster. You're the reason that the arena is booked and security has been paid for. And public liability is paid for, and portable toilets are paid for, and cleaning staffs, and blah, blah, blah. By the time it's your name on that poster and it's your name on the building for that evening, you're the boss and you're paying the overheads and you're taking the risk. You've done something right. Whatever genre, whatever, okay, we happen to be talking about alt rock, so, Creed, Nickelback, but name the genre. Name the genre, name the country, name the building, name the event. By the time enough people agree that this is a thing, you've done something right. Whether it's great songwriting, great musicianships, the whole band plays one chord all night and it's made you stand out and now you're a thing. Whatever it is. Okay, let me rephrase this. If you went to a normal public school like myself, in the era of when I went to school in my day, and I'm in my 30s now. So in my day, if you went to school, one of the subjects at school was definitely not, if you find yourself thrust into the public eye, this is how you deal with it. This is how you still hold on to your humanity. This is how you still are okay with disappointment. It isn't you. Sometimes it is, and accountability is important as well. This is what's so flip, man. It's so tough to have interviews because I have to think about everything I'm saying, that it's not going to offend anybody, because it's really never offense.
Yeah.
But like, so sometimes it is your fault, sometimes it isn't your fault. I'm just saying that, like, when the internet's at its best and social media is at its best, it's when hopefully moments like this, where we're not necessarily stuck talking about people or things, but we can speak about ideas, and we can speak about, like, um, maybe it doesn't have to be the same for you, and it really doesn't. It doesn't have to be the same for me. It doesn't mean that because I've had a particular path right up until tonight, tomorrow morning my path can be completely different.
100%.
And I have to believe that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what are we doing?
Yeah.
I have to believe that even if you've had the best incredible path, it can be different. It can be better. You can share. And there's such a beautiful community in the audio community, and in every community now, with like masterclass and stuff like that. I love what I'm seeing. I love that, like, it's a way for people who have earned their stripes. And you said the 10,000 hours, but like, let's say there's like your 10,000 hours, and then there's like your 10,000 professional hours.
Yep.
Those are two different things.
Yeah.
An incredibly profound, as almost everything that he ever said. Johnny Clegg said to me when we were working, he said, anybody can do anything once, but can you do it again? It reframed how I think about almost everything, because it's true. It's like someone who runs the Comrades or climbs Mount Everest. These are incredible feats, but you can do it again.
Yeah.
You don't have to, but I'm just saying, like, I think that part of musicians, it's like, if like you what drives you? Okay, I want to be number one, and then you're number one, and then this crash because what's left to do? Like, I've done it now. No, just have more number ones. It's okay. Yeah. It's great. What a charmed blessing of a life. Just enjoy it. Like, it's cool. And also, go and touch some grass and be part of life and help someone else and all these cool things that, like, can be cool now and should be cool, which I think social media and the internet, there's a different accountability to the rock star now than there was, which was like, it was expected that you acted a certain way or did a certain thing, and that's just not the case anymore.
No.
And again, no one can predict culture. No one can predict what tomorrow is going to be the thing or whatever. But right now, it just feels to me like I'm so grateful that there's platforms like this, where it's like people are adding context, and no one can tell anybody what to do. No one should really. I might listen to myself tomorrow and go, that's not right. That doesn't make any sense. That actually happened.
I think that's part of life. Got to throw this out there. Like, you mentioned success earlier, these levels of success, and I got to tell you, man, just talking to you, and I don't know you well by any stretch of the imagination, but you can tell you've thought about a lot of this stuff, and the way you compartmentalize it or think about it, that to me is success. Think about even the tenacity and all these topics that we're talking about. If you didn't think about some of these things, they would drive you nuts in the way that you alluded to earlier. To go back to the final point that we were talking of there, it's like, dude, almost daily I think to myself, well, that was stupid. Why did I think that? Why did I do that? I think knowing those things about yourself and knowing that we aren't perfect, the way you are approaching things, that to me is success, dude. Because a lot of people have this kind of mentality, and I'm stereotyping, but some people don't have the same grace that you are bringing forward to this in regards to maybe they've reached a pinnacle of success and now they don't live there anymore. And so there's a little bit of bitterness. Or maybe they want this and they haven't reached that. So there's this weird animosity because of this. The way you are conducting yourself is excellent, is what I'm trying to say. And I think that is a version of success.
That's very kind. And I receive it. And I can only say that potentially just because, like, we're all just products of, hopefully, company that is also on a particular trajectory. Like COVID, no one could have predicted that. Well, scientists probably predicted it, but let's say certainly the entertainment industry, every industry, everybody was so devastated and so deeply affected. And I feel so guilty to even say this. And I say this with reverence and all the respect that is due, for anybody that suffered any kind of loss. But COVID, when COVID hit, I was in probably more than a dozen acts, projects, with the big touring artists that I'm session musicianing for, my projects, corporate projects. I was in so many different acts on various instruments, but so like gigging nonstop, and I was also full time in studio every day. So I was double dipping by grace. Like, I'm so grateful that I was that busy, but I didn't realize that I'd already actually burnt out. I was just doing it because it's what I do. And, then you become a person that when someone meets you, they're like, man, I'd love to be that busy. And then you're like, oh, like I dare not complain or like, just go. And then COVID hit. And I didn't open iTunes for like 6 weeks. I couldn't bring myself. I couldn't almost bear the thought of opening up and thinking about what song I want to listen to, because it's all learning rep, producing rep, playing rep was life, right?
Yeah.
Then losses happened, like deep losses, tragic losses. And I developed chronic insomnia. And I eventually had to go see a sleep therapist. And she said to me, what time are you trying to fall asleep? And I'm like, well, we can't go anywhere. We can't do anything. So I'm trying to be a regular, 9 to 5 without the 9 to 5. So, I'm trying to keep, I don't want to just watch streaming services, and till 5 in the morning. So whatever normal time, 10, 11, 12, whatever. So she goes, but what time would you normally get to bed in your line of work? Well, you get home, take a shower, decompress, the adrenaline of gigging, especially if you've drummed. Like with me, when I'm on drums, it takes me longer to wind down. Maybe that's just me thing. Just the physicality of it. So I get home and I'm
wired,
yeah, it kind of, in a way, it's more than any other instrument. And so I would say 2 o'clock, 3 a.m. So she's like, well, then why are you trying to fall asleep at 10 p.m.? She's like, you're an owl. And I said, okay. I thought it was just like a endearing term or something. So she explained to me that genetically, when humans are born, you're born one of two things, all of us, without exception. You're born a lark, where you are quick to fall, get tired. You get tired like this, and you quick to fall asleep. And you're an early riser, and when you wake, you're wide awake. So you can wake up at 4 a.m. and go jogging at 4:15 a.m., right? That's a lark. An owl is someone that has long onset fatigue and tiredness, and melatonin takes longer. Again, I'm paraphrasing, and please,
of course,
please, a professional, please don't roast me, but this is how it is explained to me and how I remember it. But so an owl falls asleep later, wakes up a little later, and takes longer to wake up. I'm no good before my fourth coffee. That's an owl. So, and you can be a mother with kids, you can go to university, you can be a whatever, there can be factors in your life that change your cycle, and you will adapt. But if someone drops you in the Amazon at 80 years old, you'll go straight back to what you were born as. That's who we. And I was always so jealous of when I was on my way to airports at 5 a.m., to catch a flight, that I'm death warmed up, and I'm seeing people jogging and waving, and I was so jealous. I was like, it looks so cool. I want to do that so badly, but I just can't. I can't. I've set alarms at 4 o'clock, and I'm going jogging. Are you crazy? So she was like, it's interesting that a lot of people that choose nocturnal professions subconsciously choose professions potentially emergency services and musicians and bar staff and people who are just in nocturnal beings are sometimes owls.
Else, yeah.
So then you start thinking like, okay, there's talent, and then there's, you know, circumstance and everything. And then you go like, on a genetic level, was I always supposed to be a musician? When COVID hit, all we had was time to think, you know, and be terrified and be like riddled with anxiety, you know. And so to bring it all around, when it opened up, and thankfully, you know, I was MDing, and I still am MDing like a church. So like when it opened up, they could have like services to 50 people, and there were some clubs that you could play to 50 people, and people were so eager to just connect with humans again. And so it was like slowly but surely, carefully, with caution and, you know, safety first, I slept like a baby. And I realized that I'd done the trick so long that I'd stopped believing in the magic of it. Like a musician can do the trick so much that you just stop believing in magic because you know how the trick works.
Yeah.
And I've been a musician my whole life, and I was like, I know how it works. And when people are like, yeah, but when you're on a big stage and the crowd's with you, like, it must be such a rush. And I'm like, but it's my job. Like, I dare not fail. I'm there to be the best I can be sustainably for every minute that I'm on that stage, because that's what, otherwise I'm not good at what I do, right? And when I went back to gigging, I had such like outpouring, and this hasn't left me, it's still with me now. I look back at, like, you know, a difficult sound check, or like you get there and the specs aren't exactly the PA that you require, you know. And yes, we are professionals, and there's a reason why there's tech writers and blah blah blah. I'm not diminishing that. I'm just saying that I went straight back to that kid that, yes, the gig is 2:45s or 1 hour corporate or whatever, but like, I would play for 3 hours if you let me. And that hadn't happened since I was a professional gigging musician, where it was like, now I'm not just playing for fun. I'm playing because I want more gigs, and I want to be better at what I do, and I want to be a professional, and I want it to sustain a certain lifestyle, and provide for me and my family. But after COVID, I understood that at a cellular level, I needed music to express myself, because I went straight back to sleeping like a baby. And how else do you explain that?
Yeah.
So it is magic. Music is creativity, whether you're a sculptor or a painter or a poet or being in the arts. It's magic. Maybe there hasn't really even been words to adequately describe it, you know, but I just feel that, like, more than like, you know, hey, what mic did you use on that snare? Of course, like, the nerd in us, we all want to know, you know. But sometimes it's just like the joy of the person that's holding the stick, that's hitting that drum, generates a sound that you could put a dinky toy, you know, dollar store microphone, and it would probably still sound great.
Yeah.
I think off camera, before we started the interview, you were talking about, like, it's about the vibe and it's about the performance. But what is the performance? What is the fairy dust that is performance? We all in the room, the hair stands up when you like, we got it. That was the one. Like, something happened.
You can feel it.
Like, you can physically feel it. And then hopefully you still feel it the next day when you press play, because that's also happened to me, where I'm like,
me too.
Either a vocal session or something, and you actually color mark the take. You're like, fluorescent pink, shocking purple, whatever. Like, this was the one. And then the next morning you're like, but take one still had a vibe.
Yeah, I've been there, dude.
But more than anything else, more than the 10,000 hours, because there are kids out there now that the internet is providing the opportunity that we can all see talent anywhere in the world at any time, which is incredible, and it's scary. But there are people who haven't put in their 10,000 hours, but they've just got it. They've just got it. And when you see it, you believe in magic again. You believe in just divine intervention. It is maybe one day in the afterlife, or maybe we'll all just sit back and smile when we actually figure out how it all
What
works.
it is.
But until then, we can trust our guts. I think we can trust our guts, and that the feeling that we feel is true, and that it is a guiding force, and should be trusted at all costs. When that feeling isn't there, maybe you shouldn't stick around. If that feeling is there, and it's not the best on paper, stick around. You said earlier on, where if you haven't read about 24,
that's what I was told.
And then you said, but you were too young to understand what that meant, right? For me, like an oracle, a mogul in our industry here, he'd amassed a great success, like incredible success, and I just said to him, how did you do it? Like, how did you do it? Because you're a musician as well. Like, what makes you you? How does anybody else become you? And he said, I just go where the going's good. And I knew at the time I had to remember it, but I didn't understand it at all. And I'm still trying to understand it. But maybe it's that simple.
Maybe it is.
Simple. Maybe it's the song that you wrote in 3 minutes that is the one. And you're like, no, but I need to rewrite it and pick the lyrics apart and put in a more expensive chord, and maybe like, an odd time bar here, so that the musicians can just go where the going good.
It's great advice.
But as a 20-year-old, I was like,
you start thinking the guy just doesn't want to give you the key. You're like, come on, man. I just, but he's just like, I'm just going where it feels good, We touched on microphones there with the snare drum. I thought it would be a good segue to sort of spend a few minutes talking about you as a producer. Just Jinjer eventually end up back in South Africa. That's where you are now. We spoke about that at the top of the show. You've since landed up working as a producer, multi-instrumentalist producer with some big artists over there. And I know that you worked very closely with JP, John Paul DeStefani at B Sharp Studios. God rest his soul. Talk to me about your production style. Talk to me about how you were working with John. And you said you just moved into this house. You're still busy building the studio, your 3-bedroom place. Just talk to me about some studio stuff. We won't geek out too much, but just I'd love to hear where your head's at with that stuff,
Poof, that's a lot to unpack there. So yeah, you recorded with JP as well. JP was the real deal. An engineer's engineer, before sort of like, here's 7 ways to like get the best vocal sound. You won't believe number 6. Before any of that, there was like the recording handbook.
I've read that book.
Before any of that it was like, okay, if you're working on a console, it's voltage and there's VU meters, and if the needle does that, it's this. But if it goes to tape, it's and that was it, right? And JP ran like a cult studio. It was the studio of law, folklore and bands. Another great band in our country, Afrikaans rock alternative band, Folk of Politica. They rocked up at his gate, like from Cape Town, like just like before GPS, like just okay. When you get to Johannesburg, you get onto that highway, and then you turn off there, and then you look for that street, and they're like hoot and they honk, and they're like, hey, we are here to. We're going to record with you, in Johannesburg. And he was the guy that then knew that world, and he had studied electronics, like got his diplomas and his degrees and like as an electronics engineer, so could draw you the diagram of a solid state amp and of a valve amp and of a valve microphone, and tell you why it is that and why it needs a power supply, because when he was that guy, which for me was just okay. So I could play instruments And I was such a fanatic of, before I even knew what like a producer actually is, I could tell you the producer of almost every record, because I was that guy that just would wake up on a Saturday morning before my parents are even up and just get my dad's LPs and take out the linear notes on the record and engineered by so and so. And then the 90s came about, and it was like, as a rock band, you know, in Just Jinjer, it was like every record that we loved, it was like Brendan O'Brien.
Brendan O'Brien, dude.
Yeah, you know, like incredible names, one of, you know, hundreds of just, you know, savants in the industry.
Yeah.
And the list goes on. And then you realize that we as a country cultivated giants, and the records that the world loved were touched by our talents, and you know that we can claim them, the Kevin Shirleys and
Eddie Kramer,
of course,
Matt Langer,
of course, you know, and so many, Trevor Raymond, and just as good as it gets, world class. And so then it's like, well, okay, sometimes that, you know, because there was a saying, and it still is, but like there was again at that incredible time in our country, there was local is lekker, and lekker is a Afrikaans word for nice, and there was a sound to that. But then the 90s came, and we were trying to sound like our muses, you know, and you can name your name. Every South African band was trying to be their beloved equivalent, or British equivalent, or Australian equivalent, or wherever, you know. And so when I got into production, when I got back, I was like, I'd obviously, it wasn't quite as much as it is now, but YouTube was around, and Facebook had just become a thing, but MySpace was a thing. But it wasn't this. It wasn't like sharing information. It was like cat videos, and you know, it wasn't like what it is now. So I had been produced in the States and in the UK and recorded in great studios, and before Curb Records, we were actually signed to Capitol Records in the States and recorded at A&M and Henson, and like, you know, done that, been in those rooms with those people. But I was a bass player, so I just wanted to know what bass amp have they got. I didn't know that later in life. I had no clue that if I just asked more questions, if I was like, you know, I remember the one session that we did, they used, you know, the NS10 cone flip for the sub, and like, you know, those like almost like the movie The Usual Suspects. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but like,
great movie.
It like drops the cup, like, and he sees the
putting all the dots together, right?
Those, like,
yeah,
exactly. You know, and I've had so many moments in my life where I'm like, oh no, it was in front of me the whole time. You know, those kind of moments where I was just like, oh man, I could beat myself up. But the osmosis of, even if you're not like on the pulse and like sort of, oh, so what capacitance is that jack cable that I'm plugging in? Oh, what's that doing to the high end and the fidelity? Without that nerding out, you're just like, that sounds great, and it makes me want to play better. And I get it, and then you realize that if you felt that, even if you don't know how, you know what to chase. When you go into, okay, I'm going to maybe do my thing in studio, and you don't only have the experience of like, just make sure it doesn't go in the red, and don't play out of time, and don't play out of tune. Like, that's how we make professional music. If you venture outside the realms of like, okay, we know, but if it touches in the red, but all of us have goosebumps, again, I'm not saying either or. I would rather, that's another trap that like I'm trying to unlearn in my life and then in music, because music is just an extension. But I'm really trying to get out of a bad habit that I think we all at some point in life got told, like, would you rather have A or B? the correct answer is, can I have both? That should always be the answer, because it doesn't make any sense to live like, to in retrospect try and frame a life of like, should have been signed at 24, should have had a number one. But would you rather have a number one at 24, or
there's too many variables? You can't
way too many variables. Well, would you rather not know how anything works, but you got good ears, or would you be a super nerdy engineer but you don't know what to like? I was like, can I be all of it? Can I try and just do it all? But right now I really don't know what I need to know. So JP, being the engineer's engineer, was like, okay, let me worry about the needle moving and stuff, and you worry about the sonics and the framing, you know. And I guess, like, you know, there isn't really a definitive answer for what does a producer do, because if you listen to someone again, like a sage, like Rick Rubin, you can't be him, because by the time you interview him about what did you do on that album and what choices did you make there, and he says, well, I just laid on the couch and told them to keep right. You're trying to extract one flavor from a Michelin star dish. It's like, I can tell you what's in it, but you're never going to make it, because it took me a lifetime to understand that it took a pinch of it versus a tablespoon. It's the nuance. It's everyday decisions of living that life. You can't just like go, well, I made that incredible album, but then I'm also like a mechanic in my spare. Like, I do only this. Win, draw, or lose. This is what I am, and everything you get from me is I live this thing, and I've got to fall on my sword if I have to, but that's what it is. So would you rather? No, whatever you're about to say, my everyday living is what this is, this thing that I do. So production for me was like, I didn't know the technicalities as I started. I was like, I can play a few instruments, and I've been produced, and I like mind-blowing moments of incredible producers that, like, we bring a song and they go, okay, but if we, you know, the obvious thing, it's a bit fast, maybe not the right key, maybe we should double a chorus. But when someone comes to you and goes, I hear this song as a 6/8, and you're like, what? You know, and you realize that you can completely break something and not lose what you had. What you have, you always have, hopefully, for the most part. But you don't lose anything by completely breaking it if you are that adventurous and it doesn't cause anxiety. You can have fun by taking something apart, looking like, what is inside this thing, put it back differently, and see what happens then. And so I was like, okay, I can do that musically, and just let someone who really understands the science. If a mix is completely blown out and distorted and peaking across, that is wrong. That's not an opinion, you know. And that can be kind of cool if you're going for that.
If you're going for it, yeah.
It's not conventional, let's just say that. So my production was like, I was just very lucky that I got some really, really great projects very, very early on. And it just so happened that, like, then you're on the carousel of, like, someone's reaching out to you, but you're in a project, so now they have to wait a bit. And then a weird thing happens, probably in most industries, but in music as well. When you're busy, people think that something's going on, so they come to you. Whereas you can be incredible, you can be even better, but you are just currently not busy, and the perception is, but why is this person? So I don't know why that exists. I'm not quite sure, but it's almost like it's potentially an energy thing. Again, like we were talking about, like the magic of it all, and potentially like the energy when it's good, it's inexplicable. When it's bad, it's inexplicable. So I happened to catch a wave of good energy early on in my new career, people knew me as a thing, and then it's a new thing, a new hat that you're wearing. And from the get-go, I didn't bring like an air of, let me show you how this works, or I made it very clear that every project that first and foremost, I'd be the first person to say, I don't think I'm the right guy for a particular job. Before someone else tells me, I'll be the first to to say it. But if I say yes and it's mutual, then there's just no off switch, and there's no sort of like compromise. Like, okay, if the budget's this, then I'll only give it. That all goes out the window. It's 1,000% until the final gets pried out of my hands. And that's just the approach that I took in terms of like a fan first. Otherwise, don't do it. So I was like, I'm going to try and make a song, EP, collection of singles, album, whatever this is, or whatever it starts as and becomes, whatever that is. From the word go, I'm going to assume the position of like making the music that I want to be in that band, and I'm in the audience. That feeling that I had, like watching incredible bands, watching even like bands that I ended up being in before I was in them, and watching them and going like, this is it. And so that thing of like, rather than referencing that radical like cool snare from this thing, and if we do that, then you'll sound like that. That starts creeping in when you kind of know a bit more about how the magic trick works again. Like when you've made a bunch of albums and you've been in studio a long time, that thing starts creeping in where you're like, well, if we do that trick, like that worked for that, then this will probably work, because now you're being professional. That's what professional sounds like. And that's the professional mic, and we'll use but in the beginning, you're just like, I don't even know how this happened. This is awesome. When you're having those lucky mistakes in studio. So in the beginning, it was that. Like, I really didn't let my lack of hardware and software, I didn't let that limit me in terms of musicality. I was just like, listen, man, like, even if we just hum it into a phone, like we
can make it work. Yeah.
Like, yeah. And then graciously, I was very, very patiently taught through JP, and I still after working with him for over a decade, like I still didn't know everything he knew. But it was a beautiful symmetry of like being able to also. There definitely were moments where I would provide an insight into like a musical trick or a nuance or a touch or a flip that he would be like, what did you do there? Is this the same song? How did that happen? So it became not a tit for tat, or but it just became a beautiful conversation of like, he was an incredible example of someone that didn't have any at all. He did not have any rose-tinted glasses about the old days or the old ways. If you spoke to him about like consoles, he's like, oh, just a bunch of hiss. Or if you
I can hear it. I can hear it.
You were like, sir, let me tune you.
Dude, I remember the belly rub thing. I remember I went in there I was playing on some guy's EP, and he didn't mean it how it came across, but the guy couldn't really sing very well. And he would be like, have you like taken vocal lessons, eh? And like his approach about it would just be great. You'd be like, yeah, this is great, man. I can tell you some stories. I was in there a few times, I really hold him in high regard in regards to, even when I'm working on production now, he's definitely in my thoughts when I'm doing stuff. There's a handful of guys that I shared enough time at those studios. And again, I wasn't necessarily asking questions, but I was always the guy in the band sitting there when everybody had left, and I would sit and watch, and didn't know what a DAW was, but I'd watch them work on their DAWs or watch them working on their compressors and stuff like that. And so I think of guys like JP quite often, but like, yeah, I remember doing a session there and a 4-piece band, and he didn't like the way the rhythm guitarist played. And after we finished for the day, he pulled the rest of us aside and was like, we're going to overdub those guitars, okay? Just like, you know, he was all about the best results, and he got good results, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, that belly thing, dude, I remember he was always rubbing his belly.
Yeah, and I feel like the older I get, you meet characters, and when you're younger, they're like caricatures, and you're like, you know, when you're young and you meet like, I'm not talking about him at all now. I'm just talking like when you're coming up, and you meet guys who've, you know, they've been on the front lines, they've done it, they've got their stripes, you know, and they've got their ways, their quirks, you know, and you're like, this dude's like a walking caricature or whatever, and we all have these incredible stories, and then you start catching stories that other people tell about you, and you're like, oh man, like have
I become that character?
Am I a thing? Like, is that a thing that I do? Because, you know, and then you like, I'm at an age now where I'm like, just before I logged on with you, I was on the phone with Art, our singer in Just Jinjer, and we were talking about other stuff, and I said to him, it's such a bizarre thing to be considered like a legacy artist or a legacy act or someone that like can issue a statement of any sort of, you know, validity, but still feel like I'm just getting into this. I truly feel like I've got such fresh legs, and I have so much wonderment. I have so much like childlike wonderment about songwriting and recording and producing and all these things, and like AI, what's that going to do, and how to utilize it, and like, it's too young to even go like, am I doing it right? But if you're a musician or like an engineer or like an audiophile, it is about like, what is the correct way to do this? And someone's like, we're all feeding information back into this thing. Who knows? And you're like, no, but tell me how it works. I want to know how, you know, so it's a very interesting time. But when I tell stories about him, I'm like, I'm at an age now where I'm like, I'm going to be someone's story. And like, what does that mean to be? Because you realize when you spend enough time, like I did, I spent like a decade almost every day, you know, with such a kind, generous, brilliant man in his field, in his craft, you know, like really being proud of like, I know this thing. I put in my time, and I respect it deeply. I respect it enough to keep on learning. He made the transition from analog, like I said. He didn't have rose tinted shades at all. Like when Universal Audio was at Luna, when like
Luna,
it was barely even announced, and I remember rocking up at the studio. He's like, "Sir, did you check what was announced?" Like he was still so excited about the new.
Yeah, that's cool.
I think that made him a bit of a unicorn in terms of like, he would never listen to something he had done and be like blown away. He was like, I know what I can do better next time. And it fueled me because I was on the same trajectory. That's why we were so long together, of like, you know, it doesn't matter how many times someone pats you on the back. I think that in music and in everything, but in music, again, because it's who we are. Well, we feel it's who we are. It's so close to us that we can't say it's what we do and separate it and sort of navigate those highs and lows. Like, okay, so it was a good day at the office, it was a bad day at the office. But anyways, what are we going to throw on the barbecue? That's not it. It's like a bad day at the office is crushing. Good day at the office is like New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Like party time, you know?
Yeah.
And so having a bit more of a level head in terms of like, you know, you produce a number one or you mix a this or that, and it's like, thank you, I receive it, and I'm so grateful for it. But tomorrow we do it again, and you do something that you like, you are so passionate and you poured everything into it, and it doesn't even get a cough. I did my best, and tomorrow we do it again. You know,
Yeah.
like I think navigating those extremities that we're all going to continuously face is, I don't know if it's anything to impart, but I can only claim that it's something I'm working on, and it seems to be helping me to, I don't know if it's post-COVID, I don't know why, but it seems to me like gratitude is like, I think it's the fertilizer. I'm not sure if anything great can really come without gratitude. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. And I'm not talking about you know, being meek and mild and sort of like settling for the least, or of course, I'm not saying that don't have goals, don't be you know, career driven or like task orientated or like trying to achieve more and set your goals and all of that, but along the way, like the gratitude of all of it potentially is a bit of a cheat code in terms of like, you know, I don't know, maybe I'm using a stupid example here, but like, rather than, you know, sometimes when you know, all those memes where you're like, the compressor you've been tweaking for 45 minutes is in bypass, by the way. You know,
that's awesome.
You're like unblocking your ears, and you're like different listening positions. You're like, I think it's working. I think it's kind of working. Like, I like how I'm putting that together.
I love that word too, glue.
So rather than like, you idiot, it's like, I'm so grateful that like, okay, I get it now. Or, you know, you swore by a certain plugin, and then someone says to you, if you like that, you should try this one, and then you A/B it, and it blows your beloved plugin like badly out the water, badly, and you put that plugin on everything done for the last year, and now you're like, what have I done? I was so sure. And it's like I love that, and I'm grateful that I had that because I didn't know better, but now I do, and I'm grateful for this other thing, as opposed to like chastising yourself. And I don't think there's a bad way to insert and sprinkle a touch of gratitude in any capacity, because the knocks are going to come fast and hard and heavy. I don't wish it on anybody, but that's just life. It's not designed to be easy, and I think expecting it to be easy is maybe boring, you know. Even when I moved up here, like I said, like I didn't know that I would have to do this, but JP's passing was so sudden, so unexpected, literally overnight, and I'd already looked at like a different property, and it just so happened that this place came up where it was like, I never really wanted my own studio because I was always scared that if an artist comes to me with like a vision, like a real vision, you know, like let's just take, for example, a band like Arcade Fire. The whole band plays live in a barn, and the barn is part of the reverb that is the glue and the wall of sound, and it's like a throwback to the Full Spectre thing. And however you want to sort of mythologize it, and you know, it's just gorgeous, and it's incredible, right? But if someone comes to me and goes, I want to do something like that, but now I own a studio, so now the producer in me wants to chase the sound and the vision and the gut instinct, the artistic instinct, which is like paramount. It should be trusted above all, right? But then it's like, but I'm also a studio owner, so now I'm like, I kind of want them to. So I'm like, we can get that sound at my place to a degree, right? And then it's like all those things that we dare not utter out loud. Like, how am I even supposed to, like, where do I mic up in a barn?
Yeah, how do I get it to sound like a barn?
Yeah, exactly. And like, so then where's my listening position? I'm also then listening in that barn with that reverb. How am I going to even trust what I'm hearing? So then you're like using all these things. So I avoided having my own space, even though I predominantly worked a lot at a space, but I also worked at a bunch of other studios, because it's what that project required. And then I held off on having my own space, largely because of a deep inadequacy and anxiety and lack of self-belief in my technical prowess of like, if the computer happens to update to a new operating system overnight and I come to the studio the next day with my client and now none of my plugins are working, I want to just hide under the couch. I don't know what to, you know. So I had seen that happen so much at the best studios, you just rock up one day and it's like, guys, can you give us 5? We don't know why the clock, nothing's clocking, talking to each sorry guys, can we take 5? And that would always be like, I'm just so grateful it's not me right now. I can just stay in my musician airy fairy mode, and when you guys fix the problem,
we'll be at lunch. Give us a call.
Yeah, right. So when I bought this place, it had all these like I don't know if you can see this, but it's like super angular. It's like 3 bedrooms downstairs, and that's my house, and then there's like 3 rooms up here, and that's just studio. And
yeah.
It was like I had to just hope that there had been enough knowledge imparted to me, and that the internet would take care of the rest, and my peers and the community that would like hold me up, and like moving from like a PC based DAW Sequoia to like everything else is Apple. I need to like learn Logic, and I've got to like build my studio and learn a new DAW and engineer it myself. So all of this was like a real exercise in the professional in me wanted to like stop the world for 2 years till I'm like perfect and ready and at the level that I hold myself accountable to. And just life doesn't do that. Life is like, welcome to the deep end, like start paddling, bro. And I just had to remind myself in moments of like overwhelmed, like, okay, so it's like no one wants to admit that, the people see you as a person that they go to for professionality, and you know better, and you must give advice, and you must tell us how it works, and know every iteration before we've even thought of it, and be the problem solver. And that is the job. So no one dares say, I don't have it all figured out at this very second. But it's a story developing in real time, as quick as I can develop it. Like if a bread takes 7 days, I'm doing it in 7 hours. Believe me, I'm I'm trying everything. I'm trying, cooking around the clock here, and I figured that quickly, and I lucked out in so many weird ways, like nerding out on like the acoustics of like the flooring and how I'd kind of done the flooring here, and the fact that there's no standing waves because the low end dissipates through the floor, and then the drywalling here, which kind of became like slightly porous. It's not purely a reflective surface, and just how my speakers sound in here, and just like a bunch of stuff that I could never have planned, and I could never have foreseen. The universe was just, it was just
took care of you.
There's no other way to explain it, because it came from a genuine place of this space is going to do wonders for me. It's going to do wonders for other people. It's a positive thing. It's a good thing. And I think sometimes the intentionality of something will then carry you through to whatever it then becomes. And also, like, the doors are open before it's perfect, opening up the restaurant and there's still some like wet paint.
It's cool.
The plates are coming out, and then what's interesting is that, again, couldn't have predicted this, but then the space becomes communal in terms of like, if everything was done by the time everybody walked in, there wouldn't have been any room to insert somebody else's personality, and like they want the best for you as well, because they like what you do, they like you and they're like, you should do this because we think that would be cool for you. And then you allow that energy to come in, and that hopefully finds its way out the speakers when you start working, and maybe that, like, as we said earlier, maybe that's why we don't sound the same, even though we know how those records were made, and we nerded out on the studio logs, and we used the same snare drum and the same mic and the same placement and the same outboard gear. It wasn't on that day. It didn't have that energy. It didn't have that spirit. So many other like non-tangible, invisible magic,
man. I think that's been the theme. It's magic.
Yeah, and if you believe in it, if you believe in it,
I think there's something to it.
And there are people who don't believe in magic, and that's also cool. An incredible story of like, and we've all heard these stories, but music is one of the formats. It's one of the sources that can actually cut through any type of brick wall that life has built up. You know, the summary of our circumstances, of our experiences. You know, it's not a straight line, and you know, not to divulge anything, but you know, some of what we spoke about just life, real life, before we even started, and like, you know, what you've experienced and stuff. It's like we'd be robots if somehow that didn't find its way into something that we create, you know.
Totally.
So don't call it magic, call it something else, put whatever word feels better to attach to it, but it is a the word magic just means it's so all encompassing and so incredible and complex,
yeah,
and mysterious.
Mysterious is a great one. I want to respect your time, and I didn't realize how long we've been going, so I want to end on this last question, and it's a bit heavy, okay? Or at least it can be, I suppose. What do you think has either been the best piece of advice you've ever been given, or something that could be good advice to somebody else in regards to having a musical career, whether that's as a performer or a producer, a writer, a sideman, a session musician? It's up to you. And if you want to answer both, you can. It can be something maybe you were told, or maybe something you learned along the way. Whatever makes you comfortable.
I would say that I think I've answered that. I think that the two gems that have just been profound for me, and are also open to anybody's interpretation, but the two ones are just do it again. That really opened up sort of how the context and the framework of almost everything for me, really, because if you create something or write something or paint something or whatever, and you feel like this is the best I'll ever do, this is the best I've done, and I'll never do anything better than this, just do it again. It's okay, and it might be better than you could have ever imagined, or it might not be as but it'll be different, and it'll be different to someone else, and it's okay. It's, you know, I just feel it's helped me get over myself, or, you know, whichever, you know, not to minimize anything. And it's not like, you know, if you're in the room with an artist and they're like, my mandolin is tuned to 438, should I make it 440? Like, let me play you both and see which one you like. And it's not to sort of like, it's okay, just like, you know, that's not what I'm saying. Like, they are like, along the way, do everything like it is your best, and insert yourself, but don't be crippled by the weight of like, what does it mean if I can't do that again? Or, because that's just not true. It's never that, just that. It's like the other thing. Yes, okay, it isn't that, but thank goodness, because now it's this other thing. But what if I can't do that thing again? You will do it again. Do it again. Doesn't matter if it's great. If you made a mistake, let me maybe add a little you know, appendix to that. If you make a terrible mistake, maybe don't do that again. but you know, it is 2026, and I suppose I've got to try and anticipate every possible repercussion. You know, and I also will just say that I stand corrected. I'm please. This is just me talking, and the other one is go where the going's good.
That's great.
You know, that your gut and civility, like to be civil, you know, and this thin veil, like just how terrible things are in the world now, maybe it's always been terrible. I don't know, but it certainly feels we're in a tough time, and the veil of civility is so thin, anyways. You know, like to be proper and to be, you know, modern living. It's so fragile, and
Yeah.
When you're a kid and you're in a restaurant and you're staring at someone and your parents like, you know, hey, don't stare, that's rude, you know, you mustn't stare. Or what's actually happening there is that you're being taught to, obviously not intentional, again, like no one does that trying to hurt anybody. It's to teach someone, this is, you know, society doesn't do that. But what's happening in a moment like that is that you're numbing your gut. You're in a way being taught to not trust your gut, because we are all born with a gut. And sometimes just following our gut against all the advice to become a musician, as an example, everybody tells you don't do it, and your gut is just like, I can't explain it. I am propelled forward into this and nothing else. It doesn't even make sense to me. It's a fire in my belly. I run towards it, thorns and all. Okay. And then life happens, and it isn't always great, and it's hard, and it's tough, and it's competitive, and it'll test you. And are you sure this is what you want to do? And those moments will happen maybe on a daily basis. But a profound thing happens when, like, you go where the going's good, and you don't necessarily subscribe that it has to be difficult. It has to be agonizing and torturous for it to have meaning. Of course, there are times where that applies, yes. But don't also smell a rat when something just organically blossoms and blooms in such a beautiful, quick, amazing, positive way.
Yeah.
Don't go, no, this feels off. It shouldn't be this easy. Like, I shouldn't be able to write a hit or like get an incredible drum sound just throwing the mics up. No, I need to like check the phase, and I need no. We can all get lucky.
Yeah.
And then we just go there because it's good, and trust it and follow that, chase that rabbit's tail, and then at the end of that, do it again. Apply with a pinch of salt. If you can get something out of it, then bless you with it.
Denholm, this was such a treat for me, man. I can't thank you enough for your time. And very good fortune and good luck coming your way for the 30th year anniversary of, what is it, All Comes Round? Was that the debut record?
That's, hey, good memory, man. Thank you for remembering it.
Man, I don't know what the song is, but whatever that, it's almost like a Rosanna kind of groove. That thing's forever in my mind. It lives rent-free in my head. I'm just like, how the freaking hell did he do that that bottom triplet, you know?
Yeah, Brent, obviously, like, he was like all of us. He was a drummer's, your favorite drummer's drummer, you know, like
a monster.
Yeah, just an interesting little, you know. I also am looking at the time now. Sorry, it took a.
No, man, it's been great. I'm sorry, I've taken your time.
No, this has been so cool, man, and also such an honor. As I say, I truly, I didn't ask you this, and maybe you don't have an answer, or you do have an answer, but I don't even know how I qualified for. I don't know.
You're Denholm from Just Jinjer, dude.
Your 100th episode.
And it's like I said to you earlier, I made a list and I was like, I'm going to reach out, and it came down between you and another guy, and the schedule didn't work for him, but you had gotten back to me. We're going to still do it, him and I. But when you got back to me, I was like, oh my God, you're going to do it? Like, amazing.
Just to get back to Brent, so that's the opening song on the first album.
So
and
good.
It's a song called Too Late, and it's like that's
it.
It's like an all single bass drum, like machine, you know, like a beast. But the interesting thing about that is that, because again, no one could have anticipated what that album would become. Like, nobody.
Yeah.
The record company, a big label, major label.
Who's that? Sony BMG.
And those drums were tracked to tape with no click and no guide.
Wow.
My memory at the offices of BMG. not the
Unreal.
studio, the offices. So where the desks and the fax machine,
Yeah.
and the prefab roofing, and like the cables were fed through the tiles, the ceiling tiles.
Yeah.
And he had a like a 20-inch kick, like an 8-inch, 8, 10, 12, 14,
Yeah.
and a 20-inch kick.
Wow.
For a
Fusion.
rock record.
Yeah.
And like a 12-inch, like Dennis Chambers snare or something, right?
Piccolo or something.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So picture the scene of like this incredible mojo pot of it shouldn't work. You know,
Yeah.
you had this like young 20-year-old dreadlock guy writing really like insightful, obviously cut from the cloth of the Cat Stevens and the Rodriguez, and so writing these incredibly deep, like almost timeless, universal human stories and concepts in a rock band with like a funk bass player and like this sort of like almost like jazz kit. So if all those elements were in and the album did nothing, and someone asked, but why did it flop? Everything I just mentioned would be the reason.
Yep.
The album did what it did, and when people ask, but why? They give the exact same example.
It's the spinning the plate thing you were talking about earlier.
So above all, trust your gut. And this has been a very, very deep honor. And again, I really hope I'm worthy. If I'm not, then you can make this episode 101 and make someone better episode.
Not going to happen. You're going to be episode 100. I'm sticking to my guns. And you are more than worthy. I can't thank you enough for your time. Best of luck with everything. Thanks. Keep me updated with the studio and all that. And just keep making great music, man.
And you too.
Thank you, man.
I'm really, really excited and curious to please send me stuff you're working on, and
I will do.
I'm definitely going to be deep in the subscribes and smashing the subscribe and the like buttons and following you and your path. And I wish you just a peace during this time as well, and take your time. And when you're ready, we're all ready to hear what comes out.
Appreciate it, brother. Thanks again. Awesome. Enjoy the rest of your nights. I'll talk to you soon.
Take good care, bro. Thanks.
You too.
Yeah.